I know something you don't know. It's me, Jeff Stone, with day 53 of the year 2016 at magicreviewed.com. Today we're looking at the secrets, the subtle secrets of Solomon. Solomon's Secret Subtleties. $35. It is the week of the $35 trick or DVD, I guess. So, let's just get out of the way. Production quality, Big Blind Media. Duh. It is a killerly produced. Is that a word? It is now. Killerly produced production per the norm with these folks. So, no issues there. You get about, a dozen or so effects. And they're, things that you're familiar with. Spectator cuts the aces. There's a 2-card transpo. There's a handle as sort of a biddle trick variation. A handling of Bannon's, that folding the cards in Mr. Fantasy thing. There's a handling of that. There's a really clean shuffleboard. Simon Aaronson's shuffleboard, really clean. No, like from a shuffled deck kind of a version of it. Anyway, spelling trick. There's a clock based on the old clock trick. A lot of different effects that you're probably like, oh, I know that one, or I've done a version of that, or whatever. And that's fine, and that may be enough for you to decide not to get this. I don't know. But I would just tell you this. This is a very aptly named DVD. Solomon's Secret Subtleties. These are some subtleties and little additions and little things that David Solomon has added to these things to make them extremely deceptive, much more deceptive in almost every case. And just, I'll give you one example. The clock trick. If you're not familiar with that, you deal out 12 cards in a circle, so it's like the hands, like a face of a clock. You have somebody think of an hour, and then peek at the card that's at that hour. And then you're able, through whatever procedure and whatnot, figure out what card they selected and or the hour they selected, right? Well, a lot of that requires that type of effect, at least the ones I've seen in the past, require a lot of procedure and picking up those 12 cards in a specific order and things like this. This one, man, when it's done, he just has them, scoop up all the 12 cards, just throw them back in the deck. And I could be wrong about this, so don't quote me on this, but it seems like right from that, like, the cards got shuffled. And yet it seemed like, I do know this, whether they were shuffling or not, I can't remember, but I do know this. At that moment in the effect, I'm looking at it going, how in the world is he going to be able to know anything? Because his back was turned and he didn't peek, and there's no peeking. His back was turned when they peeked at the card and they thought of the number. And to me, there was no possible way he could know anything. Yet, he turns around and he's able to, after the cards are gathered up and everything and put away in the deck, he's able to not only tell what hour they thought of, but what card was at that position. So a very, very clever thing he's added to it that is extremely subtle and super simple, and it can be done with a borrowed deck of cards. So there's stuff like that where he just adds this extra level of deception, or deceptiveness. I'm not sure which would be a better way to say that. Anyway, Spectator cuts the aces. Very clean version of that. It's one of the cleanest I've seen, and it's one where, so if you know how those kind of work, then when I tell you what I'm about to tell you, you're going to think that this is impossible. But the Spectator freely cuts to 4 places. Then you turn over the top cards, and they're all aces or whatever you want. Actually, I think in this case they're kings. But then you turn over the 4 packets, and the aces are the bottom cards of each of those 4 packets. It's very clean. Very, very clean. The folding the blanket thing, again, just a really simple little tweak he added to that Bannon thing that makes it a little bit more deceptive, a little bit more impossible seeming, and a little bit more clever and sneaky. I don't know how else to say that. So there's tons of that kind of thing added to, I don't want to entirely say standard plots because, that Bannon thing's relatively new, at least published relatively recently, just a few years ago. But there's, again, some of the classic stuff like Spectator cuts, the aces and so forth. So he just takes, I don't know that anything on here is anything that's just totally 100% original concept or plot with David Solomon. I might be wrong about that, but most of these are his variations on things, but they're variations worthy of publication in my opinion, because they are subtle additions that really do make a big difference. They're not just the stupid, I used, the kings in my twisting the aces routine, so it's different. Or I used red cards instead of blue cards is the typical example we cite when we're talking about this stuff. Now, it's not like that. He really has added some serious value here. Some of the effects I would say that none of them have any like procedure type stuff. But there are a few where you got to do some running, shuffle, stacks, couple of those, but most of them not. A lot of them can be done with a shuffled deck, a borrowed shuffled deck. So there's a lot of really good stuff here. Here's one thing I will mention that I did mention in the review, and then there's one thing that I don't think I mentioned. The thing that I did mention, David Solomon is a super smart guy. He knows his stuff. He knows his history. He's a part of that history in some cases. He was a very good friend of Ed Marlo's, and so he knows a lot of this stuff. And I kind of a little bit got the sense that he was assuming we all know it too. And he was, citing things like, well, it's the old classic whatchamacallit plot. And he'd name some concept that I wasn't that familiar with or hadn't heard of. And I'm not, I'm not Max Maven, but I think I'm pretty well studied in Magic. And, there's some things that I wasn't familiar with. And so because of that, he sort of assumed a level of knowledge with us that you may not have, that I didn't have in some cases. And so because of that, some of the explanations were a little bit rushed. And, what I like about people who are really good teachers of Magic, when you're in a situation, for example, where you supposedly have the four aces on the table, but they're really something else, and you're explaining now, okay, these should be the aces, but they're really, and then you show what they are. He didn't. He actually continued referring to them as aces during the explanation, never showed that they were in different cards, and it just things became a little muddied and things like that. Now, Liam Montier was there during the explanations, and he would occasionally interject and say, to be clear, let's look at this a little bit better. And so that helped, but you're going to have to rewind a few times. So that's a problem. The other thing will not affect the star rating, and I don't think I mentioned this in the review, but there's a few places where it's clear that he has some habits that I don't want you guys to pick up. One of my missions with this whole separating the gems from the rubble is also not only helping get good product out there, but to get good magicians out there. David Solomon is a good magician, no question about that. But he's a better technician than he is an entertainer, which is fine. I'm not criticizing. I'm not insulting. I might be critiquing here, I guess. But he often has a problem where he's talking over the spectators. They'll react to something, and there was a great potential there for him to interact with them, and he just plows through and gets the trick done. And that is a really bad habit, guys. And I've done it. I'm not, I'm not saying that I'm above that. But I'm just warning you, don't pick up on his bad habits, that's all. None of that's going to affect the star rating, but that's just my little, magician to magician here. Just letting you guys know to be aware of that. But anyway, product is solid. If you're a card person, you're going to love this. There's tons of great stuff on here with good methods that are workable and doable that you can add to your repertoire relatively quickly. It's going to take some practice. And he uses a concept in card magic that I've also used quite a bit. And it's a simple thing. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's a simple thing that you can do it anytime, anywhere with a borrowed shuffle deck. That I can't tell you how many magicians I fooled with it. Because they don't think about it. It's an old thing that people don't do anymore or something. I don't know what the deal is, but I do it all the time, and it fries people. It really, particularly magicians who kind of know how things work, and they're like, well, wait a minute. How could that work? That's not possible. Also fries the lay people, of course. Anyway, he does a lot of effects using that concept. So, I don't know what else to tell you, folks. That's it. 4 stars. Stone status a gem. So, it's time to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and listen to the random iTunes song of the moment, which is Caught in the Middle by Ronnie James Dio. That's right, Dio, my man. The 3-foot-tall little rock god. Anyway, I don't have any good trivia to tell you about Dio. I think I've given it all to you. So, just tune in tomorrow, day 54, for Too Hot to Handle by Kieran Johnson and RSVP Magic. Until then, folks, thanks for watching. Peace out.